All right, we have been waiting for her to come on the podcast. We've gone back and forth the last 2 months. She's insanely busy, and we actually had a date set on, I think, in August, and then I ended up getting the Heat job, and we had to push everything back. So I really appreciate her sticking with me and making an appearance today. That's Sarah Spain, ESPN radio host, TV personality, columnist. That's What She Said podcast, Sarah and Fitz show on ESPN Radio, sarahspain.com. Sarah, Steven, Strom here. Thank you very much for carving out some time for me today. How's everything going?
Good. Congrats on the new gig.
Thank you. And I know you had some time here in Miami with the Le Batard show, right?
Yeah, I was just thinking the other day that like when something just becomes a regular part of your schedule because of work and then it disappears, you're kind of like in that moment, you're like, oh yeah. And then now I'm like, man, it's been a long time since I've been to Miami. I used to get there maybe like a week at a time every month or two. Yeah, I'm missing all my Miami faves. Although the schedules when I would go down, they would be really tough because I would do Le Batard all morning and then my radio at night till 9 p.m. So people always thought I was like out doing fun things, going to dinners. I'm like, no, I just like Grubhub food in my room at 10 p.m. and then wake up and start all over.
I love that. So I've got a decent portion of wannabe broadcasters who listen to the pod that seek guidance and wisdom. So I'm going to start here, Sarah. In 2010, you started as an update anchor at ESPN 1000 in Chicago. My first question to you is, because we all want to move up, we want to keep moving up, but we also want to make sure that we're doing our job.
Yeah.
What was your mental approach as far as trying to continue to move up the ladder, but again, handling what you need to do as an anchor first?
I'm so glad you mentioned that because I often tell people like it's great to be unique and special and different, but you first got to know the assignment and do it, because if you try to do that in the midst of a job where they really depend on you to get the things that you need to get done first, it can be really frustrating. It feels like someone's got their mind and their eyes set on what's next. I also think it's just not a good way to live in general, not in work or in life. I think it's great to be ambitious, but if you're constantly not satisfied and looking for what's next, you're never operating in the present and you're never congratulating yourself and feeling gratitude for what you've already accomplished. And like, for me, gratitude is such a huge part of just being happy every day. So yeah, focus on how accomplished you are in getting to that first spot, making that first step, understanding that that's necessary to get to what's next. And then for me, especially, I moved to LA after college because I wanted to do comedy and acting. My dream job remains Saturday Night Live. I refuse to say it was. You never know when the opportunity might arise. And so I did the whole Second City improv conservatory. I did acting classes and auditions. And So when I got to Chicago, the first job I had was for a startup website. And I really brought a lot of that improv stuff to the gig. And, it was about showing player personalities. And one of the ways I did that was not intentional sketches where they like knew they were a part of it, but kind of, right? Carlos Zambrano destroyed the Gatorade cooler. So I went around and interviewed the Cubs players about the Gatorade cooler going on the IR and what were they going to do for their hydration needs. And why was that cooler kind of always in the wrong place at the wrong time? Interviewed the Gatorade repairman about like, how long you think he's going to be out for, how serious is it? Just bringing a little bit of levity to things. And same with a lot of the interviews with the players. And they appreciated that. And the fans really liked getting to know them beyond the standard interview questions. So when I got to ESPN 1000, I made sure I took seriously getting across the information required for the updates. But, I would try to have some fun with it. And if a Bulls player had a really good game, be like, messed around and got a triple double, guess you could say he had a good day, trying to mix in some rap lyrics or some, talk about teams getting eliminated and going golfing.
Sure.
So I think the key is to be true to who you are. If what you're great at is statistics or advanced statistics, bring that in. If you're really funny, bring that in. If you're a great interviewer, try to find a way to sort of lean into those skills. So you're bringing out the things that you think other people need to see to understand that you could do bigger and better things, while, like you said, making sure you still do the job.
I love that. And just like at the end of the day, this is entertainment. That's every person that I've sort of talked to that's in a higher position as me. Like when I was at SiriusXM interning for a Mad Dog, the PD there, Eric Spitz, told me, make sure that you're poking your audience, passion, opinion, knowledge, and entertainment. And that really stuck with me. That's something that really stuck with me. And that's what this is. So it's great to hear that, like you use some of that comedy, some of that outside stuff and brought it into the sports world. I think it's so important to bring that in, because at the end of the day, this is supposed to be fun. Like we're supposed to be entertaining other people.
I completely agree, but I love that. What are those acronyms?
Yeah.
So acronyms. I love that because it also involves, knowledge and informing, because I think listen, sports isn't always going to be fun. Most of the time it should be, and you should be able to be entertaining or the passion part of it, right? If you're really passionately discussing something and debating something, you might not be laughing about it, but you're bringing a ton of that intention to it that keeps that listener interested. But also for me, like, so much of the job is informing. And if I find something interesting and I can make it interesting to other people, that's so cool to me. Is like, I want other people to learn this thing that I learned because I think it's cool and interesting. And that's especially important for me when I want to pitch to like do more on something in the women's sports world, in the mainstream, whether that's around the horn or on my radio show, is like, here's why it's interesting. And I remember getting in a battle with a producer about Serena Williams. She almost died during childbirth, and she had to tell the nurses, this is what I think is going on. Like, I think you need to do X and Y. And if not for her taking control in that situation, she might have died. And they were like, it's women's tennis. And I'm like, no, it's like the greatest player ever almost died.
What?
Like, this is interesting. Let's talk about it. And so I think you need to know, like, sometimes have a great time with it. Sometimes want to talk about the Washington football team investigation, how BS it is that the NFL is not going to release that. But your take is the right one. Like, if you're not interested, the people watching and listening are not going to be interested. So, make sure that you're really digging into the things that are compelling and different, and don't just be a copycat of like other things that you're seeing on TV.
Sarah Spain with us now. We're going to bounce around. We're on limited time here. I appreciate you giving me some time today. One of the questions is going to be, I know you grew up in Illinois, Chicago, specifically with the sports teams. I need to give you, you need to give me your Mount Rushmore of all time Chicago athletes. So I'll give you time. I'm not going to throw you on the spot with that, but I wanted to segue into something that I watched just researching for this interview, Men with Mean Tweets. You and Julie DeCaro, put together this piece. I actually showed my girlfriend, and I was like, this is heartbreaking. And her reaction was like, yeah, Steven, this is what happens. And I guess for me, like, how did this piece come about? It was incredibly powerful, and it was just perfectly done.
Thank you. Yeah. So there's this guy, Brad Burke, and he actually happened to be acquaintances with my husband years ago, which only matters in that when he reached out to me and a number of other women in the business, I was 2 weeks before my wedding, and I had said, I'm not doing anything except for my job. I need to focus on the wedding. And then the request came around to do this video. And if he hadn't known Brad, I don't know if I would have said yes. I would have thought, I just don't have time. But I said, okay, it's only going to be an hour, and it's a topic I care about. So I'll do it. He kind of envisioned it like telling the guys coming in, it was going to be like Jimmy Kimmel mean tweets. So they would think it was sort of with a wink and a smile. But then when they sat down and had to be face to face with us, they realized that some really awful things that they had to read. And all of them were real comments that Julie or I had gotten on, Twitter or Facebook or Instagram. And I think the key for Brad was that he had seen a couple different articles written, and everyone reacted very strongly to those articles, but then they'd kind of get back to life, and he wanted to find a way to make it more visceral. And he felt like actually seeing people say the words and seeing women receive them felt more real than just black and white print. And that's so true. I mean, that's part of the reason that people feel empowered to say those things to people online, is that there's the anonymity side. You're losing all the like psychosomatic responses of what your body and your brain communicate to each other when you're actually talking to someone, and you can see whether their face looks sad or happy or upset. We don't have that online. We just send it out into the darkness and don't realize how it affects other people. So I'm really glad I did it. First of all, it ended up being huge. I mean, it was right before the wedding. So when it blew up, I'm like trying to get ready, but I've got ABC News in the lobby of my building doing a feature. I'm doing, NPR full hour shows, and I've got, all these different, things that I'm doing to try to help promote it as it blows up. Jared Leto and Kim Kardashian and Aaron Andrews and all these, Brene Brown and all these people are sharing it. And then it won a ton of awards, and people still say they use it in their classes and really get a lot out of it. So I don't know that much has changed, but it was part of pushing Twitter to enact some new options in terms of blocks and mutes and reporting people. So I think, that's good. It's trying, although we're really just fighting human nature more so than we are any specific app.
Yeah, Sarah, it was an incredible piece. And I don't know, like Julie as well, it was just really powerful. So those sort of things really stick with you. And I just wanted to bring that up and shed some light that was, if that's something that anyone has not seen before, make sure to check it out. It's on YouTube. You could find it anywhere at this point on the internet.
More Than Mean. Yeah, it usually comes up, More Than Mean.
All right, Sarah. So last two for you, and we'll get you out of here. Let's do your Mount Rushmore of Chicago athletes.
All right. Number one is obviously Michael Jordan. I'm obsessed. Ernie Banks for me is, even though I never got to see him play, I knew him post career, and he's just a magical person. And and his idea of let's play too, and always having such joy for the game and making a rhyme about the season before every season began. The joy in playing there for me is a big part of it. Walter Payton stands for so many things, for the 85 Bears and for his fight, and became such a larger than life figure, especially after death, that I think he represents Chicago. Gosh, there's only 4. What
are we thinking here?
The thing is, there's a part of me that's like wants to include some super badass female athletes, but the timeline is so short, right? Like, we don't have the nostalgia and history to connect to them in quite the same way. So that's harder, especially, the Sky just won their first title ever. The Red Stars have been in the mix, but have never won it all. Gosh, that's so hard. I'm going to go with, I want to put a Blackhawk on there.
Yeah, not right now. You don't.
But not right now. Yeah, but no. But you look at someone like Aronik. I'm going to go with Jonathan Taves, because as the captain for 3 titles in 8 seasons, and as a good dude who I cross my fingers and hope I don't find anything out from this latest stuff that he's involved in, that I can't imagine that he would be. I just have such respect for him as a person. So I'm gonna go with Johnny Taves, although there's a little recency bias there, but you can only go with what you know.
That's fair.
I threw in mostly old folks, and then Jordan and Taves for me.
I like that. Last one for you. And you just talked about Jonathan Taves and certain athletes that you're able to connect with. I guess for me, it's like really the first time I'm around, like, I covered for Princeton basketball, but those are still great athletes. But this is like my first time being around, professional athletes. And I think some of the best relationships that you're able to connect with are the guys that really humanize you, and, we're both dudes, like, we're both humans. Yeah. Exactly. What do you have any stories? Do you have any players or coaches that you felt like, really kind of took the time and humanized you?
Yeah. I have a lot, actually, which is great. When I got thrust into the locker rooms without any real experience, because I was not a journalism major. I didn't know I wanted to get into this early on. So when I moved back to Chicago to work for that startup website, I was in the locker room for the Blackhawks, and then for most of the season for the Cubs. So a lot of the Blackhawks players, even Duncan Keith and Chris Versteeg, when I was trying to get some interviews done and I wasn't able to schedule around, like, literally said, you can come to our house and interview us because you do a great job. We really like the work you do. And it's kind of BS how difficult they're making it for you to get around some of these like rules, because we were a startup and we didn't have as much of, an established name. So Versteeg has always been one of my faves. And Duncan Keith was great. Jonathan Taves, a lot of those Blackhawks players, like, I still rave about hockey players as being some of the coolest guys to interview, because they're just a little more down to earth. Ryan Dempster of the Cubs he's a very funny guy. He has his own show now on the network here in Chicago, the Cubs network. So he loved playing around with the improv stuff and the funny pieces I was doing. So he was always like down for whatever and really cool. Swin Cash, former WNBA player who now works with the Pelicans front office. She would always go out of her way. Elena Deladon, when she was with the Sky, would always go out of her way to make sure that she helped me out with interviews. Charles Barkley is one that, like, I met him once or twice at the station, and then, I ran into him outside of the United Center. Sarah, how are you? Whatever. Ran into him on the ESPY's red carpet. Hey, I heard you just got married. I was like, what? What? And he always would remember. And now we're friends. I was just out in Arizona a couple months ago and shot him a message. He's like, let's go out to dinner. Let's hang out. So, like, Chuck, for sure, that what everybody says about him is very real. He is the nicest dude, super fun. Jeremy Roenick is another one. When he was playing for the Sharks and he would come back and play the Blackhawks, one time he let me do a full, like, ride along of his whole morning routine of where we'd always get his coffee, going through the back entrance, switch to the longtime Blackhawk staffers he knew and would say hi to, meeting with a fan before the game. And then same thing out at the All-Star weekend in Vegas. Roenick was like, let's, do all these pieces and show you around. So, I've gotten pretty lucky. There's some real assholes too, but for the most part, I've had some really great people.
Sarah, thank you so much. This was a fun spot. I appreciate you carving out time for me again. Make sure to check everything out that she does. She does a phenomenal job. Also on Around the Horn, I forgot to mention that, but that goes under TV personality.
Yes, for sure.
That's What She Said podcast, Spain and Fitz, ESPN Radio. Sarah, thanks again, and enjoy the rest of your week.
Thanks for having me. Yep. Stick with it. You seem like a natural. You're very good at this.
Thank you very much, Sarah.